Go. Hey,
Cool.
everybody. Nice. Already, it's like I always think of the movie Rushmore, where it's like, well, you've got two pins, punctuality and perfect attendance. So everybody here can choose the punctuality.
That's right.
It's
Some
literally
of them might have perfect attendance too.
You might.
I'm sure some of these folks might have perfect attendance too.
That's true. Yeah.
We got some good stuff in the chat. Who here has perfect attendance? Yeah. Well, welcome everyone. We're going to give it a second to get set up. It looks like we probably still need Hep and James. Wait, James, right? Sorry, my brain is.
Yeah. So our teammate James,
today.
he has a little daughter who just woke up, but he said his wife should be home in 5 minutes. So I thought we could start with some other stuff. James is one of the designers in the video group, so I'm sure he can introduce himself. But he just did a really cool project he put on YouTube. We'll wait. I'll show the other stuff first, and then if he doesn't get free, I can
we'll
show it.
Hype him up.
What's that?
We'll just hype him up a little bit.
Totally. Anyway, yeah, no, I can show the vid, and I can tell you a little bit about his process, but obviously it's better if he can tell you.
Great. Yeah, this works pretty well. I was sending John this message over Slack, but it seems like sometimes it takes a second for people to join on Discord for whatever reason. I think the notifications go out a little bit late, so I think it's all right to get things started a little bit slower.
Yeah,
maybe
cool.
In the meantime, for folks that don't know us, we could do quick intros. John, I'll start and turn it over to you, and then we'll get rolling. So thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Gus Martin, and I work on the community team at Adobe alongside the wonderful Aaron, who's also here. Hi, Aaron, and Jack Watson as well, and all of our awesome moderators here on Discord. So I'm really happy to be here. John, feel free to take it away.
Yeah, thanks. Hey everybody. In case we haven't chatted, so I'm John. I'm one of the PMs, product managers, working on Firefly. I'm focused mainly on the website experience. At this point, it's interesting because like when we started a couple months ago, there were just a few of us, and you could like PM most of the thing. But now it's like there's all these product integrations, like generative fill in Photoshop. There's a bunch of teams who are building cool new stuff we can't show quite yet, but of course we got Adobe Max in a couple months, so expect a lot of cool revelations. So anyway, we've kind of had to divide and conquer. So I'm mainly focused on the web, trying to build some cool experiences. I'll get to show you one here in a second that I think might be interesting. And I'm also
perhaps
say again.
A little sneak peek, perhaps.
Oh, definitely. Well, it is and it isn't. So what's interesting, I'll maybe this will be a good segue. Unless we want to wait. And there's Hep. Hey, Hep. If any, or Tim, anybody from Adobe or others who want to introduce yourselves, feel free. Otherwise, I'll just keep chatting. And also, there's like a UPS guy who's like theoretically gonna. There it is. Maybe that's a good cue. Hep or others, if you want to do a quick intro now might be a good second.
Hey, Hep.
Hey, y'all. So I'm Hep. I'm a product manager here at Adobe. I work on Firefly among many other products, and I'm real excited to hang out and speak with you all today.
Thanks for joining. Do we happen to know what James's Discord username is? James might be here, and we just don't know.
Let me check with him.
Okay.
I don't. And by the way, sorry if it seems like I'm sketchy and looking away. I got a new monitor with a new camera, so I'm gonna try sharing from one screen, but having you guys visible on the other. So if I'm looking away, I'm not like lost, searching for thoughts. I'm just trying to see you while also sharing my screen. Okay.
Good luck. I see James is here. James, I invited you an invite to join us on the speaker stage. You should get a little pop-up.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. Well, why don't I share my screen first, and then we can cut over to James, who I asked like 20 minutes ago to do this. So he'd already shared some really cool stuff. But yeah, are you guys seeing my Twitter feed with this this art breeder picture?
For everyone watching, if the screen is small, if you click on it, it'll actually enlarge it. So just click on it in the top banner there.
And Gus, I noted when we did the recording last time, we did make that switch at some point in the thing, but like if we can do that early, that'd be great, because
Yep.
otherwise people got to see like way more of me, and that was like this tiny demo, which is not awesome. You'd much rather look at that than me. All right. So enough intro. I think folks are rolling in, which is cool. So yeah, I just happened to see this demo. Artbreeder's been around for a few years. In case you haven't seen it, super cool site. They've been doing lots of really neat like generative imaging and almost like a genetic mixing one thing with another. I'm showing somebody else's tech, but I'll explain in a minute like the segue. So let me just full screen that, and I'll lower the volume in case there's cute music. Okay. So yeah, they're showing this pretty cool interface where again, in the name Artbreeder, it's sort of inherent. It's like, oh, two things, and like what if they got together, and like what would that produce? So it's kind of a speed run here. This notion of like, yeah, there's you've made a chicken mech, or a chicken mech made of mushroom, or chicken mech mushroom in the forest, which is pretty exciting and pretty cool, and obviously like a really potentially delightful way to make art. And one of the things that we have previewed now, it's been up for 4 months, which seems like forever, on the Firefly site, is this kind of a similar concept where you could just take multiple images and then you can kind of vary the weights between them. We've never actually shown it live, as far as I know, but it is, something we've been public about planning to do. So I thought it might be fun to actually show that. So what's also interesting, there's a guy named Nathan Shipley, who I finally got to meet in person. He's been at Goodby Silverstein. Now he's doing a residency. And let me just cut over. Sorry, I've got too many open windows. But so I think Nathan is actually working with, I believe it's Joel, who is one of the folks, or if not the guy behind Artbreeder. So I'm going to drag over this image. When he was talking about today, he's like, oh, I was like taking Frida Kahlo and a chicken and making Frida chicken. So I was like, okay, that's suitably bizarre. That's up my alley. And so, just playing around with, sorry, again, I'm trying to just get you guys back where I can see you. Just playing around with our tech this morning, I thought, oh, it'd be kind of interesting. What if I tried to do something similar, trying to make this sort of, Frida chicken. So I thought I would, let me just back out of there, and then I'll get to the kind of the punchline. But show you sort of, again, similar tech that we've been playing with. So we call it Image Basher. That's just like an internal name, for lack of a better one. Maybe it'll be different by the time you can get your hands on it, which hopefully isn't too long from now. But I just wanted to click a preset, and the preset had these 3 images over on the right. And so you've got this cute little robot, you've got a living room, and you've got some kind of abstract art. And so again, core idea is dirt simple. I'm sure the technology is anything but. But again, you're really just kind of taking these 3 things together, and you can mix them in now with a prompt. So down here in the lower left, you see Milky Way galaxy. By the way, if folks in the chat have ideas, requests, we can take those in a second. But again, you can just kind of play around and try to get to an interesting result. So, just for the lulls, I was like, well, let me replace these guys. And I went and grabbed a picture of Frida and a chicken. Maybe I should go ahead and get rid of the other ones. Okay. Oh, actually, that's kind of interesting. All right. So you guys are learning as I do. I inadvertently hadn't removed the Frida, well, the other prompts. I'll try that in a second. But again, this is where, one, generative tech is super wild and weird and addictive, and also my kids cannot believe that I actually get paid for this. And I'm like, I can't either, guys. It's a pretty lucky ticket. But just to show you, again, this is literally never been done before or seen before. But it's like Frida Kahlo. It's the Milky Way. It's a living room. It's a chicken. There you go. So let me back up and let's say I have no idea if this prompt is going to work, but I just wanted to say I grabbed these 2 images off the internet, basically inspired by Nathan making Frida chicken. And in the spirit of cooking things, if if this doesn't quite work, I will cut to my Julia Child pre-cooked chicken, and we can talk about that. But anyway, just in the chat, if you have comments, questions, ideas, any initial reactions, totally lay them on us. We think there can be some really fun experiences we built. A couple of weeks ago in one of these, we met and talked about, what could be almost game-like experiences, things which are like really fun and playful, sometimes silly, sometimes not, but trying to make something beautiful and interesting through these tools. So this was one of the things we were kind of playing with as an idea. So what you'll see is, again, if I, let's see, maybe less Frida, more chicken. I don't know. We'll see. Give it a shot. Again, like the reason this stuff obviously isn't shipping is it's not all ready to go. It takes a little while to process. But let's see. I got some interesting results that I can show you in a second. But again, anyway, you get the core concept. So the first interesting one I got, again, this is sort of just more chicken. Maybe if I add a little bit more Frida to it, it would be interesting. But while that's cooking, as it were, I just wanted to say, well, I started to get some weird mutant combinations with like a woman with some chicken coming out of her head. Probably not what I wanted, but it took me in a new direction, which is sometimes rewarding. And again, I'm just getting mainly chickens over here. But let me cut to a different tab. And here, you can see I've actually got, again, not exactly what I intended, but it is kind of a Frida chicken. And I think it's just endlessly fascinating kind of to see about, I don't know if thinks is the right word, but like how the system interprets different inputs. Again, it's the mixture of the visuals, each with its own strength, and some combination. I guess I had Milky Way Galaxy in here, which is not really coming through. But definitely just kind of a delightful, serendipitous place to play around with things. Teammates or folks on the chat, if you got comments, questions, lay them on me. But in the meantime, just really this is kind of a little preview. I can't promise that it will ship. Again, it's just something that we've shown, as a technology in development. It might be that we can wire the tech into a different surface. There too, it would be great to get your feedback. Is this like just part of text to image? Is its own thing? That'll be an interesting exploration. But as always, very, very open to feedback. Anyway, with having said all that, maybe we can pass the mic to James. James, if you're ready, I will stop sharing my screen, and hopefully you're able to share yours. If you aren't, let me know, and I will bring up your vid, and then just tell me how to scrub through.
Thanks, John. I want to do a quick PSA also for folks that don't already know. There is a chat. There's a stage chat specifically for this live stream, and it's in the top right corner of the window, the stage window. So if you're wondering, hey, where the heck are all the messages? Look in the top right corner. There should be a little dialog box with a number next to it. And if you click on that, you can actually send us messages while we share things with you. So knowing that, if you have any ideas or feedback from what you just saw from John, feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll make sure that John sees it. And take it away, James. Sorry, didn't mean to cut in. Just wanted to make sure everyone knew.
No, not at all. Hello, everyone. I'm James. Like John said, I'm kind of doing this on a bit of short notice today, so I don't have anything prepared, but I would like to show you a project that I've been working on over the last few weeks or so. I just posted a link in the chat. So this is a video I created recently using a whole host of AI tools. And I had some specific goals in mind for this video. So let me go ahead and walk you through some of that. So actually, let me just share the video here and see if it works. I'm used to things not really streaming that well when I share them. Stage 1440 1080p. Okay, let's give this a go. Let's see if it works.
It claims to be 60 FPS, so fingers crossed. All right.
Processes, trudging through the desolate terrain of the Yukon Territory, severed from the comforting touch of civilization. We'd heard the whispers of a green valley, an oasis amidst the frigid wilderness. Within its unsettling beauty, a lake of emerald waters, beckoning the curious into its depths. A rugged island standing as a sentinel, guarding the fabled mine that was to be our prize. Tales of unimaginable wealth danced on the lips of those who dared speak of it. But they also whispered of a darkness. Riches turned to curses. A shadow that clung to the lake's icy depths. A horror that we had now awakened. It's here.
Super cool.
Okay, so let me back up a little bit. I'm James. I am a design manager on Adobe After Effects. And obviously, we're all very interested in Gen AI tools right now. And I've been playing with Midjourney since it came out a little over a year ago now. And I remember being in my backyard just having a bit of an existential crisis, thinking like, oh, wow, like I've been an image maker and a animator and just a creator my whole life. And now this tool can just do it so much better than me. And that was a year ago. So now it's clearly better than me. And I think a lot of people are having some of these same types of experiences when we're looking at these gen tools, just how powerful they actually are and how it's reshaping the way that we go about thinking about how we create now. And so one of my goals with this video was to figure out if I were to sit down and build a large scale project using only AI tools, what would that look like? And how would that make me feel as an artist, as a creator? And would I get the same sort of satisfaction? And would I feel ownership? And just what would that process feel like? And I wanted to internalize that and then bring that back to my team so that we could have some of that knowledge and ideally build products that make sense for our customers. So a couple of my goals for this were, I want this to feel like a real animated trailer. And so I couldn't really use some of the Gen 1, Gen 2 technologies out there right now because they're a little still too nightmare fuel-y at times. And although this is a bit of a horror movie, like it was a little too abstract for my needs. So I had to use other tools. I wanted it to feel like a 3D animated short. And so because of that, I wanted to actually build 3D assets. And so I wanted to start with 2D images and then figure out how do I bring those 2D images into 3D space. And so I use a set of tools to do that as well. And I wanted to use AI as much as possible in this process. So if there was a tool available to do this work on my behalf, I wanted to go out there and find it and utilize it. I was really inspired by a lot of the work I see across the internet right now, but especially on Reddit, because it's all kind of centralized. And you see these younger creators just taking bits and pieces off the shelf from all over the internet and smashing it together to create these new types of creations. And so I was really excited to try that for myself. And so that was the impetus for this. And then I just eventually wanted to document the process. And again, like I said, bring that back to the team. So to talk a little bit about the process, and then I'll wrap up with how this whole process made me feel as a creator. I started off in Midjourney and Firefly. And what I'm sharing right here is my storyboard. So these are the 11 images I used to generate this entire video. I cheated in one spot, and where that lake monster shadow appears underneath the boat, I did make a very, very simple 3D model for that. But I've had that shot in my head for years, so I needed to cheat a little bit there. Other than that, I tried not to cheat at all. And so I used these. I spent about 3 days generating these images and really trying to coax Midjourney and Firefly into giving me exactly what I needed. Like I actually have these sketched out more or less as you see them here in my sketchbook. And it took a lot of figuring out in terms of how to, as anyone who's played with these tools, it's really hard to get the composition that you want. You can get something very beautiful very easily, but to get that specific composition is a challenge. And this is really where it felt like as a it really does feel like, it sounds cliche now, but it really does feel like you're the creative director of your project, and you're working with this amazingly talented group of artists. But the artists don't speak the same language, and you don't speak the language of any of these artists. And so you're constantly trying to figure out how do you communicate to them like your vision. And there's a lot of this back and forth and trying different ways of communicating, showing them pictures of the things that you want. Sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong. But eventually you get there and you figure it out as you go. And so, like I mentioned, you're the creative director, and you have this amazing pool of artists that you're working with, but you're also kind of the intern in some ways as well, or like the new hire, and you're doing all this like assembly work underneath the scenes. So you're guiding this process and guiding all this asset creation, but you're also the one that's assembling all of those assets underneath the hood. And so that was the predominantly where I spent most of my time with this project. But so I took these images and these top 10 images in particular, and used a couple different AI tools to transfer them into 3D images. And so what I first did is I brought these into a Stable Diffusion extension for automatic 1111, and then I just basically upscaled them. And you can find upscalers anywhere. I just happen to use this one. And then I brought those into Photoshop, and then I used Gen Fill to do all my in-paint and out-painting. So I knew I needed to extend these sets in order to get that 3D feel. I needed to also cut out some of these characters and infill the background so then I could have that parallax feel in 3D when I went to animate. And so Photoshop was an amazing tool. I spent so much time just preparing all these assets in Photoshop using Gen Fill. And then I would kick those back over to something like Stable Diffusion, and we have some in-house stuff we're working on as well to turn these 2D images into 3D images or 3D content. And then you could actually then bring that 3D content into any 3D application you're comfortable using and start to assemble these scenes really, really quickly. It's very pretty basic stuff. In my case, I was using Cinema 4D just because that's what I'm used to, but you could easily use Blender. And then once you're in, and actually I'll just pull up the video so a little easier to explain what's happening here than looking at this screen. Okay, one moment. So
Again, while James is pulling us up, a quick welcome to anyone that's joined recently. James is showing a bit of a process for a YouTube video trailer that's been primarily created by mostly generative AI, and we put a link in the chat for you if you want to check it out. So if you have questions or want James to dig deeper on anything he shares, feel free to put it in the stage chat.
Oh yeah, I still want to know, James. I think Hep asked the question, who did or maybe Gus did, but who did the cool vocals?
Yeah, I'm wondering too.
Yeah, so the vocals, so much of this process was trial and error. So again, my whole goal was to only try to stick to AI tools as much as possible and not cheat, and only fill in the gaps where AI was lacking currently today, or there was a tool out there that just wasn't quite fitting the bill today. So in the case of audio, I spent a lot of time digging through Hugging Face, trying different audio spaces. For the music, I ended up using Meta has a tool for generating music. I probably spent a day and a half just generating music to get that clip that I really felt like fit the mood of this piece. But you can also give it influence, so you can actually take a piece of existing music, plop that in, add a prompt. Similar to it's almost identical to how you create images with any of these other generation tools. It's the exact same process, but it's a slightly different language to learn. And so that's why I created the music. For the sound effects, I would say about 60 to 70% of the sound effects are also generated. And those were all through another Hugging Face space called Bark. I believe I used Bark for that. And it rapidly creates sound effects. So you type in what you want, and then it gives you something, and you're like, that's fine, it kind of works, kind of doesn't. You spend enough time with it, you'll get what you need. And then for the voiceover, I use two different tools. For these scenes where the character is actually talking. So this was a bit of an involved process. It's kind of hard to tell when I'm just kind of scrubbing through it here, but the light's actually refracting off this guy as he moves, but this is all from a 2D image. So what I did here was I used a tool called DID, and it's free. Almost all the stuff is free except for something like Midjourney and the Adobe products. But a lot of stuff's just open source and experimental right now, so people can't really charge a whole lot for it. In this case, I use DID. And basically you can take any image with a human face in it, and then tell it what to say, and then it'll generate some ambient motion on that image, and lip sync to whatever you have it say. And you can scroll through a couple different voices that you want to use as well, or add in your own voice if that's what you want to do. And so,
Just curious. So was like the British man? Was that just like a voice it synthesized for you?
well, there's two different voices in this. There's the voiceover, and then there's these voices that when like he says, "What was that?" and there's another time the guy says, "It's here," and those were for DID. And so in the case of that DID video, I explored that out, and then I took it into a tool called EB Synth, and I went back to Stable Diffusion. I took the first frame of the DID video, because now there's an animating character in this video before, which is a 2D character. So I needed to create a depth map that would match that new set of frames. So I took it back into Stable Diffusion, created a depth map, and I used EB Synth, which is the tool where you can like take a style frame and map it to piece of footage. It works just as well for mapping depth maps to footage as well. And so now I have this animated depth map, and I can bring that back into Cinema 4D and extrude that video in space. And now I get light refracting off of the sky, whereas before he was just a static image. So I was doing all these add very subtle light to the scenes, and I spent more time on the subtleties than people probably are ever going to pick up on. But you can see in the background here, like there's a character back there. He's moving. I have some like little deformers on him. There's light refracting all over this cave. There's a lot of stuff you can do, and you can push it even further to really play out the 3D nature of this, which is what I was going for. There's much better ways to build generative film when you're just using tools like Gen 1 and Gen 2 and Pika Labs and that sort of thing, where you're not really focused on the 3D quality of it. But I was like really focused on making this feel like a 3D animation, so I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, that's cool. And if I'm not mistaken, some of the core tech in EB Synth was designed and developed at Adobe. So it's nice to see stuff come full circle.
Right on. And to get back to
one more question for you. I'm just curious if you relied on AI for like the concept of the video itself or the script, like the actual ideation.
Yeah. So a little bit of story on the story itself. I came up with the story probably back in like 2006 or so. I have the original piece of concept art laying around somewhere, but it probably took me a minute to find it. And actually, I need to track these down. I created this poster for an Adobe competition back in 2006, and I sent it in, and the winner received a free copy of After Effects. I did not win, because they were basically going to take the poster and animate on stage at a conference way back in the day. I did not win, but that kind of put me in the journey of like always thinking about this movie I wanted to make eventually. So the idea was mine, but I did actually use Chat GPT to help me finesse the script to feel like some sort of like 19th century horror author. And so I was pulling some old names out of the hats, these guys I used to read back in the day, and really going back and forth with Chat GPT to like give me ideas on like phrases or turn of phrases that I wasn't going to be able to come up with on my own. And it sounds cliche, but it felt very collaborative in a way that I had not collaborated before with these tools. Like I would send it my ideas, it would send back its ideas, I would sit on it for a day, I would change it back, I would send it back again, and back and forth we went over the course of the project until we landed on the script that we did.
That is so cool. I just noticed we had a pretty big influx of people here in the Hangout, so I just want to say welcome to everyone and quickly set the stage. Right now we're chatting with James, who works at Adobe and is sharing and creation that he made primarily with generative AI. And I don't know, maybe we take a minute or two again to actually show the video, James, so that people can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Thanks.
So again, this is a video that I created with predominantly using AI tools, but my broader focus was trying to make a very convincing trailer for a 3D animated movie that I've had in my head for a very long time. And this was the result. Is it playing? I'm seeing.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apologies.
We were prospectors, trudging through the desolate terrain of the Yukon Territory, severed from the comforting touch of civilization. We'd heard the whispers of a green valley, an oasis amidst the frigid wilderness. within its unsettling beauty, a lake of emerald waters, beckoning the curious into its depths. A rugged island standing as a sentinel, guarding the fabled mind that was to be our prize. Tales of unimaginable wealth danced on the lips of those who dared speak of it. But they also whispered of a darkness.
What was that?
Riches turned to curses. A shadow that clung to the lake's icy depths. A horror that we had now awakened.
It's here.
Thanks, James.
Yeah.
And for anyone that hasn't used it before, we have a chat that accompanies the Hangout. It's in the top right corner. If you click on that, you can actually send us messages and we'll be able to see it. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I'll just jump into a few of the little bits and pieces that I think would be interesting. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer those as well. Get back to the original question, John, in terms of the actual narrator voice. I spent a lot of time searching through different tools that made sense for that, paid and free. I ended up using 11 Labs. They have a great video generation like studio space. And you kind of just keep hitting generate with different qualities that you want until you get the version that sounds right for you. And then people can train their own as well. And I spent a half afternoon just trying different voices. And then I ended up playing on this one. It kind of sounds like Clive Owen at the end of the day. I didn't realize at the time, but after I made the video, I was like, oh, it's cool. He's narrating my video. It's pretty cool. And I always liked him, so that works for me.
This is a silly observation, but my son, he was 12. He loves to do like a fake Attenborough voice, like, and now we see the blah, 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 like that Planet Earth, very proper narrator. So it made me think of that too. But you're right. It has a Clive Owen. Now I can imagine my son.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Next thing I know, he'll be doing high school presentations by like ChatGPT plus 11 Labs and in the voice of Richard Attenborough. So we'll see.
How did you do that text effects at the end? I'm assuming that's text effects from Firefly, but the way that it kind of like comes out is just amazing, and then the 3D treatment to it.
Yeah. So this is from Firefly. And this last shot, I was trying to figure out a way to combine, the idea of the gold in the mines and like the snow of the Yukon and like this like darkness and like dark rock formation. So the rock formation, that's just a gen fill special. I just typed in rocks, coal, something like that. I can't remember exactly. Interior cave, and did the same thing. Made a depth map in Stable Diffusion, popped that into 3D, and just extruded it. And I did the exact same thing with the text here from Firefly. So basically just turned it into a black and white image and popped the levels on it, and that made for a great depth map in of itself. And then you bring that into Cinema 4D, and all I'm doing is I try to stray away from any sort of complex animation. This is just one layer moving up. That's all it is.
With the camera rotation, I see. I also love the sound effects too. In this particular one, like that crackling, like extruding noise. I assume that was also your AI sound effects creator, but just really great combo.
Yeah, thank you. That was that. Actually, I remember nailing that sound effect in the very first generation. I was like, oh, that's it. The crackle worked perfect.
Well, and just to interject, I mean, for folks who weren't here earlier, James was making the point that it felt like a very collaborative process of going back and forth with the AI tools, like generating the sound effects or generating, parts of the script or language and then parts of the vocals. But I mean, the thing is, like, obviously folks worry a lot about job displacement and, sort of skills being devalued. But to me, this is a perfect example of like, even if you gave somebody all those tools, like most people aren't necessarily going to be able to make this, in that you have like a whole cinematic vocabulary, right? I mean, you've spent many years clearly like thinking about art and idioms and composition, and that's what makes it work, right? I mean, you can synthesize things in isolation, but like, anybody can type something in a Midjourney or into Firefly, that's great, but like bringing it together, that to me is the human skill. And not to put words in your mouth, but I can imagine this, like, I think you maybe said this in text, but like this kind of gives you as an individual creator now the ability to like bring to life your vision, because you can have this collaborative relationship, right? Where it's not okay, I only have time to do this one piece of the puzzle. Is that fair to say?
That's 100% correct. Like I mentioned, I came up with this idea a long time ago. And actually, one of the reasons I learned how to work in 3D was because I wanted to bring this to life back in like 2010. And I made a few shorts that I was like building up to this one, because I want this one to be like the big one. And the amount of work involved was just astronomical. Like you would spend, a whole weekend making a model that you didn't end up liking on Monday. And so I have sketchbooks littered with storyboards. I have files in my folder littered with 3D models that I've come up with. I'd spend about half a week on building like one piece of concept art in 3D. And so it was too much work for me to do on my own. And so I thought this is a great opportunity to take this idea out of my head and try all these new tools and smash it all together and see what came out. And it was actually a couple of insights where I was actually really pleased with how it came out. I mean, there's obviously seams in it, but also I felt much more ownership over the project and the process than I would have anticipated. Like I feel like these are my images, even though Midjourney created them. I spent 3 days with Midjourney creating them. I feel like I gave it enough input. I would photo batch stuff in Photoshop, and I would bring that back into Midjourney, and I would combine like 5 or 6 images and be like, make something based on these with this prompt. And I went back and forth after a while until I got exactly the images I wanted. And it's a pretty cohesive story.
And I have one more question. I may have missed this earlier, but how much color grading and color reprocessing did you need to do from those raw images to get this? Or did it just nail that color? Because it's so cohesive.
It's funny you should ask, because I probably spent another half a day trying to add more color correction on top of what was already there. But I ended up taking it away at the end of the day, because like I already got the color correction I wanted via the prompts that I used. So I built the color correction into the actual prompts for the images, and that gave me a really cohesive set of images from the get-go. So
And that's so powerful, because like color grading is something that does kind of require like a lot of skill and understanding of color theory, and it's definitely something where if you can notice when it's not done correctly. So just making it so achievable for anybody to like dial that kind of story in, so then the clips come together like just so beautifully, where it really you feel the darkness, the richness, the emerald lake color, just really well done. And there's a chat question, which is, what was the total time it took to make this, from Carlos?
yeah, so Carlos, I have 2 answers for you. If it was just about the production and actually using the workflow that ended up working for me, it was about 2 weeks. If we also included all the trial and error and all the tools I abandoned along the way, which were more tools I ended up actually using, it was probably closer to 3.5 weeks. And so the actual time it took to create this, and actually a lot of that, even that 2 weeks, was spent because I was using kind of a finicky render engine in Cinema 4D that's kind of known for being unstable. So I had a lot of crashes and a lot of waiting. So if you were to build this in a real time environment, which is what I would do in the future, it would take a lot less time than that. Like you could probably build something like this in a week if you really kind of just were streamlined and going full steam ahead.
Cool. Guys, I got to bounce. Thank you, James. That was amazing. Feel free to keep going, obviously, rock on. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I have to go do my actual job. This is thankfully part of
Boo.
But you know what I mean, the 99% perspiration. But I promise you there's some really cool stuff that'll come out of it. So it's worth going. But thanks, everybody.
Thanks, John.
Cheers.
We'll be wrapping up here in just a second. I do want to share briefly, James, I was able to do a little Google sleuthing, and I found your Instagram, so I'm going to post it in stage chat here in case anyone wants to find your work. And then, yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to cover, James, feel free to do that, but I'll just let everyone know we'll start wrapping up here pretty soon.
Maybe there's just one more shock. I think there's something kind of magical here that people are excited to know exists, because I didn't know it existed. So So like I mentioned earlier, like these are all 2D images, and you can see how much like 3D space you're getting out of this shot moving down into the mine. And if you really look closely, you can start to see some of the seams, like there's like holes in the mesh because there's nothing there. Stable Diffusion currently has a tool where you can, when you 3Dify a 2D image, it'll try to in-paint those holes for you. I didn't end up using that because it was just for reasons I won't get into because it was just too clunky for me. But so it's pretty incredible, like the depth you can get from a single image now. And we're also like experimenting with this in-house as well. But the little magical part I wanted to call out here is these characters that are walking here, like those are rigged 3D characters, and I did not rig them or create them in 3D. I used I showed a storyboard earlier, and there was just a guy there that I generated from Midjourney. And there's a Hugging Face tool, which I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But you can actually create a 3D character mesh from a 2D image. And so, again, it doesn't do a great job. Like these shots are pretty dark, and so you can't see some of the inconsistencies on this character. But it does a pretty dang good job. Like I would use it from now on if I was ever going to create a character and sculpt it again myself. I would start here because it gives you all the cloth and it gives you a lot of detail. And then what I did is I just took that 3D mesh and popped it into Mixamo, Adobe Mixamo, and that's where I got all these animated cycles. And so that process took, maybe 15 minutes all said and done. So these are things you could easily do today to like build 3D characters into your animations pretty rapidly, even if you don't have skills with or experience with creating characters or 3D characters from scratch.
That's really cool, James. We have one more question from Ted. Ted says, he said it took about 2 weeks, but what do you think the timeline would have looked like without Firefly and also by extension generative AI tools?
Yeah. Over 6 months in my case. Like to get this level of plug. The sculpt, like a mine scene like this, for example, would have taken me at least a couple of weeks, if not more, to sculpt it, to texture it, to build the materials for it. Probably even more, just for that one scene, and then you multiply that by 10 scenes. You're looking at time. So pretty incredible where we're moving right now and how quickly we're moving right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. I can't help but feel like we're going to see so much more, like quote unquote, like amateur studios or like less funded studios or creatives create like really high quality animations or really anything. Like storytelling, I think is just going to be up leveled across the board so significantly that I don't even know. In a couple of years, it's just going to be mind blowing.
And this is all
maybe not even
in its infancy. Like all these tools are super experimental and they're fussy and they're temperamental and the quality, you can see where it's going, but it's not quite there just yet. So, I mean, think about where we've come in a year. Like a year ago, we were just starting to play with DALL-E and Midjourney on our phones, and now you can make films with all this stuff. So it's just
wild.
Yeah, I think a lot about 3D. Like 10 years ago, a lot of the 3D tools were not as developed and user-friendly and UI-friendly as they are today. And now it's like so easy to go into like Substance and make beautiful things very easily. All the tutorials are there. So definitely I can see that same trajectory even faster for AI tooling.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like right now, there's a lot of these tools that exist that are really, there's really no UI for them at all or UX for them at all. Like they exist on like a Google Colab space. You have to basically program it. Like tells you how to program it, and you program it, and like you're reading, you're trying to do the thing, and like once the UX picks up, and like once the technology slows down a little bit and gives UX that time to catch up, it's going to be, these tools are going to be incredibly easy to use and approachable for new users. And Adobe's already doing a great job with our Firefly tools, as you guys all know.
That's the hope, right? And we've got a lot of people in here. The plug every week is if you do have ideas or feedback. The team is on Discord a lot, so share in our features and ideas forum, on the community forums, join these hangouts. A lot of us are in here either lurking or participating live on the stream. So it means a lot to us. And I don't think we would have been like where we are now had we not had the level of participation we've had from the community. So as always, hats off and a big thank you.
Hey, thanks all.
Cool. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks for joining everyone, and I hope everyone has a great weekend. James, thank you. I know it was short notice, but this was really, really cool.
Yeah,
Good to see what you've been working on.